So as a fashion girly, one of my absolute favorite days of the year is the Met Gala. And back in 2023, the theme was Karl Lagerfeld because he had just passed away, I think maybe the year before. And during that Met Gala, Doja Cat showed up dressed as a cat, as Karl Lagerfeld's cat. I loved that look. It was my favorite look of the whole night. As a certified cat lady myself, I love anything that has to do with cats. So I thought it was super, super cute. And I decided when I saw that I wanted to make my own interpretation of that look because it was just so fun and I wanted to try to challenge myself. So for Halloween, I did just that. But instead of doing it in white, we're doing it in black because, again, it's Halloween, so we have to lean into the black cat theme. So this is my take on that look. Enjoy. All right, so before we do anything, I need to get the pattern figured out for this particular project. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this pattern that I already had. This is what it looks like, and I'm not gonna do the slit in it, and obviously this is supposed to be like an ankle length dress. I'm gonna do it all the way down to the ground. So we're not gonna do the cutout, not gonna do the slit, go all the way down, but because I'm taking this all the way down to the ground and I'm not including this slit in the dress, and I do want a little bit of a train ideally just because I think it would be really pretty. I'm doing more of a slinky style look because the fabric is very, very flowy. It's kind of like a chiffon that's beaded, so it'll be a little bit more flowy. So because I'm not putting that slit in there and because the dress is like a column and it's straight down, I need to add a little bit of flare at the bottom or I won't be able to walk. So I'm going to be lengthening the bottom, adding in the flare on each of the pieces, and then I guess that's it, and not putting the cutout in. And I don't want to actually alter these pattern pieces because I would like to be able to use this pattern again if I want to later. So I'm going to have separate pieces of paper that I'm going to use to make the extensions for the pattern, and I'm going to be making a muslin first. I used to never do this because I was very, very lazy and the thought of making something twice was just like not appealing to me. But as I've started using more expensive fabrics and actually like trying really hard to make my projects look really good and professional, I do make muslins now. So I have just some plain cotton fabric that I'm going to make everything with first, compare it, make alterations on my actual body. I can actually put it on, see what's working. So I'm gonna have to take the hips into, there's gonna be changes I'm gonna have to make. So I'm adding length and changing the shape of the bottom. So it's gonna be probably a little bit iterative, but I will talk y'all through all the changes that I make. So let's get started. To make the extensions for the pattern, I roughly lined up my extra paper with where the knee of the pattern piece would be, and then I measured down from the bottom of the dress pieces about 5 inches. I did add extra inches onto the back to make the train, and then I added a little bit of flare to each piece. You don't have to go crazy with the flare because there's so many pieces that's all gonna add up together. So you don't have to go too crazy, but I just added a little bit of flare to each piece. So this is the front piece, and this is going to be cut on the fold, so I left this side completely straight, and then you can see I have the flare added on this side and the extra length here on the bottom. So that is basically what each of the pieces looks like. I added 5 inches to the front, and then I added an extra 9, so a total of 14 inches to the back pieces because I wanted to have a little bit of a train. So this is what the pattern pieces are looking like. I'm going to use this to go ahead and cut out the muslin. Once I cut out the muslin, I'm gonna put it on, get it all fitted the way that it needs to, make sure that the bottom is lining up the way that it should, all that good stuff. Once the muslin is perfect, that's gonna be our pattern for when we actually cut into the nice fabric. So I'm anticipating that this will be the hardest part of the whole thing. So let's go ahead and get started so we can move on to the fun part. To make the muslin, I just sewed all the seams with a straight stitch, and then I pinned in the zipper so that I could get a very, very good idea of how it would fit. Okay, the muslin's done. You ready to see it? Okay, so this is it. This is the first draft muslin complete, and it's not terrible, it's not great either. So let me tell you right off the top what I see needs to change. So this top part is, let me get a little bit closer here. This top part is really loose. This is a lot of side boob for me, much more than I am used to or comfortable with. Straps are too long, so we're gonna bring this up and then probably edit these two seams a little bit so this will lay flat. And this, bringing this in, will accentuate the waist a little bit more. I knew that I was gonna have to change the shape of the hip, and this is just so straight. I'm gonna take both of the side seams in, and I think that's the only seams I'll need to take in. So I just want it to be a little bit more hugging on the hip and on the booty. And if I bring that in, it gives me a much better shape. So I think that'll be the only two seams I need to change on the actual skirt. This is fitting very well through here. I don't want it to be any tighter than that. So I'll need to alter the length. I think I'm gonna keep, it's hard to say if I'm gonna keep all this train length. This is the point where I'm gonna be taking this off and putting it back on and editing it and going back and forth. Sorry, my head's cut off. And so I haven't quite made that decision yet on whether or not I'm going to change the train. So we're gonna start from the top and work to the bottom. So I'm gonna show y'all what I'm doing to the top first, get y'all in nice and close, and then we'll go down, and then we'll just we'll just start working on it, getting it perfect. Okay, so I think I have the top pretty much pinned the way it's gonna be. So I have this side pinned in a little bit. I don't have this side pinned in. So I was trying to pin this, it's so hard because I'm right-handed, it's just too difficult. So, but if I pull this in, it starts to get too tight right there. And so what I'm gonna do is take the amount that this is in and split it between this side and this side, because this is the correct amount of, what am I trying to say? This is the correct fit, but I just need this to be split up so that this will be smooth. So if I bring this in just a little bit, it'll smooth that right out. We're gonna bring these in and take in the shoulders, and that's it for the top. Top done. All right, so I've gone through and made the edits to the muslin, and so I think it's completely done. Let me back up a little bit so you can see the top. So it's fitting pretty perfect. I shortened the sleeves, took in this seam a little bit, about, I think, 1/4 inch. Also took the sides in about 1/4 inch, and I did add a little dart right here. Would have been perfect if it could have been completely smooth here, but it just was sticking out too much and I couldn't figure out how to get it to be smooth any other way. But everything's going to be all black and the fabric's beaded, so I don't really think you're going to see it. It's got a little bit of a dart right there. And then I did lower the back of the neck 1 inch. When I brought the sleeves up, it was just like coming up way too high on my neck. So lowered this 1 inch in the back. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I did different? I mean, I also took the hips in, and I did end up taking the waist in a little bit as well. So it's fitting really well. I'm gonna add a vertical clip here so you can see the whole thing from the top to the bottom. It's just so hard to get it in frame horizontally. The only thing left to do is to do the hem. Now, obviously I can't do the hem because it's on my body, so we're gonna be using the dress form for this. Okay, so I have the muslin on my dress form, and with the shoes on that I'm planning to wear, I have cranked her up to be my exact height. So when I stand here, she's the exact same height as me. So now I can do the hem on the bottom of the dress without being in it. So I'm gonna do the hem, and then also, I already knew that the pieces were not going to align properly for the train because I don't know how to make a pattern for a train. So I'm going to be just trimming the back pieces so that it's actually smooth and rounded, because right now it's like rectangles at the bottom. So those are the two things I need to do, and then this will be completely finished, and then we can move on to the pattern for the hood. And then we can actually make the thing. So we're getting there. When I was marking the hem, I just wanted the bottom of the dress to lightly graze the ground, and then my goal with the train was just to blend all those pieces together. I'd never done this before, so it was kind of a guessing game, but your goal is just to get it all smooth and combined so it looks nice. Okay, so now that the actual dress pattern is done, we have to move on to making the hood pattern. So let me tell you about this saga of this hood pattern, because I don't know how to make patterns from scratch. I just know how to alter them. So when I initially was going to do this project, I was looking for like a hood pattern or like a balaclava pattern, because it's got to cover the neck and just have a cutout for the face. And I did find one, but it was only PDF, and it was only a $5 PDF on Etsy. So I was like, well, it's only a $5 PDF and it won't be very expensive to print. So I'll get that and I can just take it to FedEx and they'll print it. No, that is not what happened. So took it to FedEx and they're like, we can't print stuff to scale because obviously it has to be to scale. And I was like, okay. So call a local place and they're like, send over the image and let us take a look at it. I sent it over to them and they were like, here's your quote. It's going to be $36 to print one piece of paper. And I was like, no way. I'm not paying $40 to print a piece of paper. So I called another place. Over the phone, they said they had a $15 minimum. I understand you have to charge a minimum, whatever. $15 is much better than $36. So they're like, also send the image over, we get it printed. And I was like, okay, cool. Send the image to them. They email me back and they say, can you pay $82 to print this? This is a 3-piece pattern, dude. This is side pieces and a middle strip, and they want me to pay $82 to print it. So I said, well, I'm not gonna do that. So enter my friend here. I've never done this before, but I'm borrowing this technique from shoemaking. This is how you make shoe patterns. If you have like the shoe last, but you don't have a pattern for your shoe, you can cover the last in tape, sketch out what you want to do, and then turn the tape into a pattern. So that's where I got the idea to do this. So this is going to be our little dude. So let's get started and see how it goes. To make the hood pattern, I started by covering my foam head with pieces of tape, and you do want the tape pieces to slightly overlap each other just to make those connections really strong so it's easy to take off later. And then I started with a pencil, just lightly sketching out where I wanted the seams to go, and of course, because it's pencil, you can erase and redraw as many times as you need to get this right. Once I was happy with my pencil lines, I then went over it with a marker, and then I used a utility knife to cut away the excess. Once everything looked very, very good and I was happy with it, I then cut each seam with my utility knife and very carefully removed those pattern pieces and then stuck those onto a piece of paper. Okay, so after making my little pattern pieces with the tape from the mannequin head, I have cut out my fabric and stitched it together, and now I have my little hood here. I'm really curious to see if this is gonna fit my head, so let's just find out and put this on. Okay, not terrible. Not terrible at all. I hate the way I look with no hair. I don't have a wig cap, or I would put one on, but I'm gonna have to get one for when I actually like finish this. I don't know if you can see, the only issue, it looks really, really good. It's very smooth on the back of my head. The only issue is there is a little bit of puckering right there. And I'm looking at it, I think I need to take a little bit of this bulk out. It almost wants to form a little dart right there on the top. So I think I just need to put a dart in there, and I don't know if the profile, it feels perfectly smooth. It just needs to put this little dart right here that'll go down the sides, and then this will be a perfect fit to my head. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in the dart right here, at least just pin it so I can see what it'll look like, and then I'm gonna try this on with the dress to see how this is all fitting. And I was originally going to put a zipper down the back of this, but then I was like, why don't I just fasten it in the front? So I'm going to leave this open, and then this will just fasten, and then that's how this will go on, and then we've got to make the ears for this as well. So let me go ahead and get it fitted just right, and we'll put it on with the dress. Okay, so I've got my hair all pinned down as flat as it can be. Still don't have a wig cap, so it's a little bit loose in there, but I put that dart in the top and it's fitting great, but this is not far enough out on the front to cover all of my hair. So I've measured, I need to bring this out about 1.25 inches on each side, and I'm gonna mark where this needs to stop. So let me mark, I want it to stop right there, so that will kind of be the guide. That mark that I just put is going to tell me I want to go from the top of the pattern piece and then have it meet back at that point. And then obviously this doesn't go down far enough, so I need to make these pieces much, much longer so that they'll tuck into the inside. So I'm gonna make these pieces longer. I'll bring this out further, bring this down lower, and then I can adjust it for the straps and everything, but I need it to be low enough to go underneath this front part and underneath, this isn't zipped up all the way, but underneath this piece as well. So it doesn't need a whole lot of changes, but I am going to make the adjustments there. And because I'm gonna have to cut this a second time, I'm gonna see if I can just change, instead of sewing a dart in here, I'm gonna see if I can just change this pattern piece so that when I cut it, I can already have that adjustment made, and then I don't have to worry about sewing another seam in there, just to make it a little bit more clean and less prep because it is beaded fabric. So I'm gonna go ahead and make those changes. So this is before, I'm gonna go fix it in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this is, I think, what's going to be the final pattern. So now I've got it long enough where it tucks in. It's still not perfect, but I'm gonna make adjustments once it's actually in the actual fabric because I don't know exactly what I wanna do yet. But now you see how this is like all one piece, and I was able to just take that dart out. So now these are just pattern pieces by themselves. I don't have to do anything to them. And it's fitting very, very well. I'm super happy with that. So now that that's done, we need to do ears for this guy, and then we can actually start making the dress. Instead of working on those ears next, I actually wanted to just start making the dress. So first I started by taking apart my muslin and transferring that over to my expensive fabric. And because this is beaded, I did use some scissors that I don't really care about just because they're gonna be cutting through plastic. It's gonna dull them. So just be very careful that you don't use like very expensive or very nice scissors when cutting beaded fabric. Next, I needed to mark my darts, which I did by using a contrast thread. Very, very lightly baste that so you can see where that dart is going to go, and then you'll use a hammer to break all the beads within that so that then you can sew that dart together. You also have to do this for all the seam allowance of the actual dress itself, so I just very carefully hit around the edge. I did add a 1/2 inch seam allowance for the entire dress, so I just had to clear away the beads for the 1/2 inch around each edge. This does take a lot of time. It's very dangerous, so make sure that you wear eye covering. The beads do fly everywhere when you're breaking them, so just be very, very careful. Take it slow. You don't want to hurt yourself. And once you've taken the time to remove all those beads off of the seam allowance, you can sew everything just like normal. Okay, so now that the hood is completely finished, I've got to figure out the ears. So I made some little mock-ups here of some little cat ears out of some hard felt. So this is like a stiff felt. I'm going to use that as the interior like core of the ears to give them some structure, and then I'm just going to wrap them in the same lining and outside fabric. I don't know how I'm going to connect them yet because they have to be standing up, so I don't know what to do. I don't want to glue them. I'm going to try my best to stitch them on, at least like with a little bit of stitching on the bottom. I don't want to use glue, but that's what we've got. Looks pretty cat-like. I made them way too big at first and it looked very fox-ish, so I had to make them a little bit smaller. So you're going to need to just kind of play around with the ear shape until you're happy with it. This is bigger than the ear shape that was on Doja's actual dress. We're making this kind of drag. I wanted it to be sort of over the top. And also, I look terrible without hair on my head. I don't look good bald, so I need the ears to kind of balance the shape and size of my head and face so that it looks a little bit more normal. So that's why I made the ears a little bit bigger. So that's what we're working with, and I'm just going to cover these, and then we'll keep going. Because the ears are so small, I did decide just to hand sew them. That way I wouldn't have to hammer away the beads on the edge. And then I was able to just stitch them straight onto the top of the hood. Okay, the moment we've all been waiting for, the hood is finished. And I'm pretty happy with it. This was really challenging to make, so I am really happy with how that looks, and it fits really nicely as well. So, dress is finished, hood is finished, so now the last thing we have to do is add the feathers to the bottom of the dress. So when I was picking the feathers for this, I was looking at the image of the original dress, and they're like a fluffy feather, and it almost looked kind of ostrichy, but I was like, I cannot afford to do ostrich on this dress. Like, that's just too crazy, and I don't even know how that would work for, like, the little tufts. But I got really, really lucky. I was looking on Moonlight Feather. That's where I've gotten feathers from them a couple of times, and they've been really good quality and not too expensive. So I found these turkey feathers. So I found these little black fluffies. I can't really see, but they're very, very fluffy, a lot fluffier than like a chicken feather would be. So these are what I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be just gluing these onto the bottom of the dress and kind of doing it a gradient on the bottom, so very, very thick on the bottom and kind of dispersing as you go up, which I believe is just like the original gown. And then it will be completely finished. So keep your fingers and toes crossed for me that I don't completely lose my mind while gluing these on, because I have absolutely no idea how many pieces I'll have to actually glue. I bought these feathers are sold by the pound. So I bought 4 quarter pounds. So I have a whole pound of feathers. I've never done this before, so I am guessing that will be plenty. I have no idea. I'm letting you know now I'm not buying more, so whatever I have is just gonna have to work. So let's see how this goes. To attach the feathers, I did use a hot glue gun on a cool setting just so the glue would dry a little bit faster. And because this fabric is a mesh, I did put wax paper underneath just because the glue was going through and it was sticking to my work table. So that just prevented that from happening. And this was just a very slow, methodical process. I did sort the feathers kind of by size just so I could sort them in a way that made visual sense. So just take this slow. It's completely up to you how you want it to look at the end of the day. Okay, so that was the saga of how I made this dress. I'm very, very proud of the work that I put into it. I think that it's one of the more technically difficult things I've maybe ever made, even still now, just because there was so much work that went into making the pattern correct and making that hood pattern, which was a whole process in and of itself. Even though I'm so proud of all the work that I did, and I do think that it turned out really nice for the resources and all that I had at my disposal, I have a hard time liking this look because, like I mentioned in the video, I don't like the way that I look without my hair. And fun fact, I actually shot the pictures and videos for this look 3 separate times because I just hated the way that I looked the first 2 times. And I think it's just because I'm so used to having my hair. My face is so round. I really need stuff to like balance my face. And so maybe that's my own just personal insecurity. I mean, I know that it is, but I have a hard time liking this look because I just don't like the way that I look without my hair. But that being said, I am really proud of it. So let me know what y'all think, if you would try something like this, and I will see you at the next one. Bye.